that I had a lack of material. I had a lot of material, a lot of things to work with, but it was difficult in the sense that I myself find myself struggling with the topic that we're talking about. And it's something that I think the world in general suffers with. And so today we're talking about where's your fighting spirit? And where do we find that thing that comes up and rises up in us when life is not great? When we're going through things that aren't fabulous, where is that peace that rises up in us? So like I said earlier, we're going to talk about three kind of incidents, I should say, that are used in a beautiful way, and you see kind of a fighting spirit in all of them against all odds of the trials and things that they're going through. So the first thing I'm going to start out with, if you want to go to the next slide, Andrea. Pretty please. So this one. So we're going to talk about these people and these events. So the first one, we're going to talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which I know many people have already heard about, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. And we're going to look a little deeper into that. And then we're also going to look at Daniel and the story of Daniel in the lion's den. And then we're going to look at Jeremiah. And Jeremiah is a little bit of a wild card. And I see a lot of myself in Jeremiah, so we're going to talk about him as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about is obviously Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And with each of these, we're going to talk about three different pieces of their story. We're going to talk about the fight in their story, the hope in their story, and the redemption in their story. So we're going to look at all three pieces of that. So we're going to start out with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, for those of you who haven't heard, there may be some people who haven't heard, I was raised in church, so it was literally like beaten into me of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego living in the fiery furnace, or going into the fiery furnace. So a little bit of history about them is the fact that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are living in, at the time, Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar is ruling over Babylon. And he has all these people around him to help him, his advisors and things like that try and help him navigate the world of being king. And this whole time he's having dreams and having bizarre dreams, and he's struggling to have those things defined for him. So we also see Daniel wrapped in this whole story as well, because Daniel obviously comes in to interpret these dreams. But we're going to go to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego specifically. And so what happens is King Nebuchadnezzar, all of his advisors come to him and go, we have a great idea. We think that all the people of Babylon should praise one thing and one thing only, and that should be you, King Nebuchadnezzar. So let's build a giant idol out of gold, and whenever people hear horns, this beautiful music, they're going to take time and they're going to go over and they're going to worship this idol that is King Nebuchadnezzar. And the king, for some reason, goes, this is a great idea, let's do this, of course, because, if I were king, I'd want people to praise me too. And so he sets this whole thing up. And so it starts working out pretty well. Everybody, starts, bowing to the idol and praising the idol and everything like that, except for these three guys. And the advisors kind of notice that, hey, these three are the only ones out of everybody who's not doing this. Who is this? And so his advisors bring them in and go, hey, King Nebuchadnezzar, these guys aren't bowing. We need to deal with them. Now, the punishment of this is to be thrown into a fiery furnace. And we're not talking about, like your fireplace at home. We're talking a furnace. And back where I'm from, they used to smelt iron and ore and stuff like that. And there's these places called the coke ovens. And they're giant smelting furnaces. And they're huge. And they've got holes in the bottom for air and this hole in the top that usually you chuck all the iron ore in, and it burns out in the bottom. And they get hot, like really hot. And the thing is, during this period, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are shared in this story, but they're not the first ones to experience being thrown in a fiery furnace. Because this is kind of a normal punishment during the time. But this specific one, King Nebuchadnezzar comes in and says, because of this disrespect that I've seen from you three, we're not going to just throw you in the fiery furnace as it normally is. We're going to crank that puppy up. I'm going to set an example out of you. And so he orders the furnace to be turned up 7 times higher and hotter than it normally is. Now, I like to picture, when people blow glass. I like that TV show where they do the blowing glass and everything like that. And you open those furnace doors and they get that blast of hot air. And that's minimal temperature. I mean, you can stand there in front of it. It's hot. But, I mean, you may get a little burn, but nothing too bad. And when you read through it in Daniel, I really want to read this key part because they turn this furnace up times 7, and then they take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they're going to go chuck them in the fiery furnace. And what it says is it talks about the guards who are throwing the 3 of them into the fire. Now, it says that we're going to talk about Daniel 19, or chapter 3, verse 19. And it says, Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them had changed. So he ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in the army to tie them up and throw them in the furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, their clothes, were all bound and thrown into the fiery furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took them. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. So, you're saying that the people who are the guards that are taking these 3 to the furnace, the closer they get to the furnace, it's so hot that they're dying as they're throwing these 3 in. Now, I want you to put yourself in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's shoes. Because this isn't the first time that somebody's been thrown in the furnace. They've seen this. This is like a public event. I mean, the king's seated up there watching this whole thing going. And I'm sure there's other people in the community that are sitting there watching this whole thing. And the fact that those guards can't even get them to the furnace without dying themselves. How hot did that furnace have to be in order to kill the guards before they even got there? It didn't say that the guards were like, ouch, this really hurts, I'm headed off to the hospital. They died because of the heat. And I just think that that's such a huge thing, because I can't imagine being Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and going, okay, we're going to go out and this is what's going to happen. And to get thrown into that fire. And I can't even imagine, I see that picture of walking towards the fire, and you're hearing your guards that are carrying you probably screaming out in pain. You can probably, the smell of burning and everything as you're going to that fire, but you don't feel anything. You don't feel the heat. You don't feel the burning. You just know you're being thrown in, and that not understanding it. And the beautiful thing about this is before they're even thrown in, the way that they refer to this is they're telling King Nebuchadnezzar, he says that he's angry with them, and they're like, well, we don't, the God that we serve is able to deliver us. He's able to deliver us. Now, if you look at that specifically, God is able to deliver. And if you look at the Aramaic, which is the language that they all spoke, that word is able, is translated into can. He can deliver us. It doesn't say anything about he will deliver us. It says he can. So when they're going and they're not feeling this burning, they're not feeling anything, they know there's one of two options. They're either going to fall in the furnace and die instantly and suffer this horrific thing that maybe they're just so afraid of things that are going on in their life they haven't felt it yet. They haven't felt that pain yet. Or the other thing that's going on in their mind is maybe the God who can save us in this moment. So as the story continues, you see King Nebuchadnezzar stands up, and his guards are dead. There's burning. It's hot. And he's, hold on a minute. Didn't we throw 3 people into that fiery furnace? Everybody around him, yeah? We threw 3 people in there. Then why is there 4 people in there? And so I think the experience of being in these coke ovens, I've been inside them, they're huge. And I can imagine the space that they've got. And I can imagine the 3 of them in this fiery furnace. They're supposed to be burning. They're supposed to be painfully dying. And they're walking around in this furnace. And there's 4 of them, and they're just walking around. And it doesn't say anything about if they were talking while they were in there. I can't imagine I mean, if I was standing there with 2 of my friends, I can't imagine I'd be sitting there going, what's going on? You know, and an angel joins them in this fire. And I would love to be in that conversation. I wish we could know what was being said in there. Because I'm sure it wasn't a conversation of like, yeah, what are you doing this afternoon? Looks like we're not going to die today. You know, we got an angel here. What's your name? Who are you? I mean, I just can't imagine that conversation. So immediately, King Nebuchadnezzar gets up out of his chair of watching and goes, hey, y'all get out here. I want to talk to you. And the thing is, the 3 of them walk out of the furnace. Walk out of the furnace. And so we kind of look at, obviously, the fight there. That they have stood against this king that has commanded them to worship something else. They said, no, we're not going to worship that. We worship God, the God who can deliver. And we're not going to follow your rules. So we're going to do our own thing. So we see this fight that's within them. But then we also kind of see in the way that they say, the God who can deliver, it gives a little glimpse of hope to them. Because like I said, they've seen this. There's many people who've been burned in the fiery furnace before. So they know what's coming. And yet they have this little glimmer of hope that burns inside them that says, maybe this won't be our fate. Maybe it will. What if God decides we don't want to live? What if he decides that? So you have this little bit of faith and this little bit of hope. And then after this, we see the redemption of this. And we see King Nebuchadnezzar, obviously, I can't imagine being him either. Sitting there going, I threw 3 people into a furnace, the guards all died. Nobody can even get close to it. It's not like you can send somebody in there to get them out. Like, nobody's even close, you can't even do that. So you call them out, and they come out, And he's like, I just love this. He's like, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like the Son of God. So he has no idea who that 4th person is. He's never seen an angel. And he's like, whoa, who's this 4th person that's in here? And he calls them out. And it says, they saw the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. I just think that's a miracle in itself. But here's the next miracle. Is Nebuchadnezzar says, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied my commands, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore I decree that the people of any nation and language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in that way. Now, I don't think there's a huge change in King Nebuchadnezzar, because he's like, hey, I'm still going to kill people, but it's okay to worship their God. So you have this redeeming factor that you come out and you go, Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego's sacrifice of being thrown into that fire, their sacrifice of saying, we're going to follow God and God only, is redeemed by a king who comes in and says, I believe you now. I got it. So that's the first of the stories we're going to talk about. The next one we're going to talk about is Daniel in the lion's den. And of course, this one is going to follow that same pattern. We're going to look at the fight, the hope, and the redemption. Now, Daniel in the lion's den is kind of the same thing. We've probably all heard it before. But Daniel is an interpreter of dreams. And he talks with God, and God allows him to take these visions and explain them to kings. And first, he starts working under King Nebuchadnezzar. He's alive and has probably witnessed what happened to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He probably knows it. It doesn't say that, but he probably knows it. Probably knows what's happened. But later on, after King Nebuchadnezzar is finished, and King Darius comes in from Persia to take reign. And Darius kind of has the same thing. He brings in all these people around him and all these advisors to help him be king. And Daniel is one of those closest advisors. And the other advisors don't really like Daniel much, because Daniel's kind of a favorite. King Darius calls on him a lot. He comes and interprets dreams. They have conversations. And so they kind of get this jealousy of him, and they decide, we're going to get rid of Daniel. He's kind of ruining our vibe here, so we're going to get rid of him. So they come up with this plan, and they go to King Darius, and they say, hey, Darius, we think that anybody who prays to anybody but you let's get rid of him. And of course, Darius being king going, whoo, everybody should love me, goes, this sounds like a great plan. Let's do it. And so they put this plan into place, and they do this. And Daniel comes out, and he goes, I'm not going to do this. So we see the story of Daniel, and he's brought before the king because they catch him praying. And it's the funny thing is, they sit there and they say, oh, we're not going to do this. This is the plan we're going to do, and we don't want you to pray. And it says immediately when Daniel found out about this decree, he went home to pray. And he went to his upstairs room where the windows were open towards Jerusalem. So how's on that day, your second floor, you'd have these massive open windows. So it doesn't say he went home, crawled under his bed, under his blankets, and prayed there where nobody could see him. It says no. He opened the windows so everybody could see him. and he prayed to God to ask for help because he knew what was coming, because he wasn't going to give up God. And he says, God, they're going to come for me, and I'm going to need your help. So there's the fight that we're seeing here. And what we're going to take a look at next is the hope that he has. Now, the fact that he's praying for this and asking for help is just that first little glimmer of hope. And not only does it say that he prayed, it says 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God just as he had done before. So he's in this middle of this ugly, I know at some point somebody's going to discover me. And I know what's been said is that I will die. I'll be thrown into a den of lions if they catch me. I'm not going to stop doing this. So God, I'm going to need your help to get through it. So he looks for this hope and this faith. And so obviously the other advisors see Daniel praying and bring him into King Darius, and Darius goes, okay, I guess we got to throw you in. And the interesting thing is Darius isn't really happy about this either. As we read it, he's kind of got a little bit of I really don't want to do this. But I kind of did this decree, everybody signed it. I really don't want to fall through with it because I really kind of like Daniel. But he's like, all right, this is what we got to do. So he takes Daniel out and chucks him in this den of lions. And they seal the top. Now, we're not talking about a den. We're talking about a hole that they put lions in. They don't feed them, and then they feed people to them. It's not like I walked into the forest and encountered a bear cave and went inside and encountered a hungry bear. We're talking about lions that probably haven't been fed in a while, and they're just waiting for the next thing to be thrown in. So you have Daniel being thrown in here. And the beautiful thing is we don't know what happened in the den. Again, I can imagine that if I were thrown into a den of lions, I wouldn't be a happy camper. I'd probably be sitting there with a load of anxiety and just going, okay, when am I going to get eaten? And I think I would be a little confused if an angel appeared to me and told me I'm going to shut the mouths of those lions. Because I find it really hard as just a human to take that concept into my head sometimes. Of, you're lions, you're capable of eating me. You're very large, there's lots of you. Now, I can't imagine that those lions went and laid down in the corner and went darn, we can't eat them. I think those lions were going, look, we got a meal, but why can't we eat him? So it's a night that he's in this den where he's just asking, God, help me. I'm in the middle of this, you gotta help me. And again, he sent an angel to close the mouth of the lions. And we see King Darius come back the next day. And the funny thing about King Darius is, if you look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, King Nebuchadnezzar sat and watched the whole thing as it went on. He commanded people, go throw him in. I want to watch it. King Darius goes home after throwing Daniel in the lion's den, and he doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. He's miserable. It says he stayed up all night. And first thing in the morning, he runs down to that lion's den and commands them to open it. Because he's going, what happened to Daniel? And they open that thing and Daniel comes out like, hey, look what my God did. And when you read Daniel, the first thing Darius says is like, hey, are you alive? I mean, I just imagine him yelling down the hall, "You in there? Are you alive? Hey, Daniel, you all right?" And it says, "Daniel, the servant of the living God, whom you continually serve, has he been able to rescue you from the lions?" Hey, that God you've been praying to, is he able to get you out of this mess? And Daniel comes out and he says, "May the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I done any wrongdoing before you, your majesty." So you have the king who, again, is kind of shown up by his own punishment. But this time, Darius also gives the redemption to Daniel that he deserves. And it's in a kind of the same way. But he also proclaims, he says, "Then the king Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in the earth." He wrote to everybody. And you're talking the king of Persia, a big nation. So sends out to everybody. And he says, "May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and have reverence for the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. And he has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." And it said so, and the kind of continues, said, Daniel prospered in the whole reign of King Darius in Persia after that. So you have somebody who, again, has something in his life that comes up that is pretty scary. It's a fight that comes up that he's like, "I can't win this. I got to have faith that something's going to happen here." And it does, and God shows up in a big way. So the last person we're going to talk about is Jeremiah. And Jeremiah, like I said, is kind of, I feel like Jeremiah is a kindred spirit. And Jeremiah is one of the prophets from the Old Testament, and there's not a whole lot known about him. But he's called by God to be a prophet among the nations of Judah. And essentially at this point in time, Judah is not behaving well. They've had 5 kings that have just flouted God. They've ignored his every command. They're doing what they want. It's a very sinful nation. And God says, "Hey, Jeremiah, I want you to come here." And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "I want you to go tell them that they're being bad. I want you to go tell them what they're doing wrong. I want you to go tell them that my wrath is coming if they don't behave." And here's a little bit of that fight that comes up. Because Jeremiah has never done this stuff before. He's never had to be a prophet. He's never had to do any of this. And when you look at the story of Jeremiah and this moment that God tells him, "Hey, this is what is going to happen," he kind of starts out and he's like, "Are you sure you want me? Are you sure you want me?" And God continues to go, yes, I do." And this is what happened. This is the call of Jeremiah. And he says, "The word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to all the nations." And he says, "Alas, sovereign God," I said, "I do not know how to speak. I am too young." But the Lord said to him, "Do not say I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and I will rescue you." Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, "I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy, overthrow, to build, and to plant. And he says, then immediately the word of God came to him in a prophecy about the kingdom of Judah. Now, I can't imagine being a young person and having God come to me and saying, hey, I want you to go out there and tell everybody what they're doing wrong. You're going to go to these kings and you're going to tell them, hey, you've been really terrible and God's going to come for you. I can't imagine being that. And the life of Jeremiah, as we go through the life of Jeremiah, he's often called the unwilling prophet, the weeping prophet. And the funny thing is, as Jeremiah goes out, he's not a prophet like Jesus. When Jesus went out and he spoke and people listened. Jeremiah went out and spoke to people and said, hey, this is what God's telling me. And they went, ha, you're kind of weird. We're going to do something with you. And he has these feelings of inadequacy all the time. All the time. He's young, he's unexperienced, he's unprepared for all of this, and all he knows is God's going to tell me what to say, and I got to say it. So his own family despises him. I mean, they tell him multiple times, we hate you, we hate what you're doing. This God that you follow is rubbish. We're following the kingdom of Judah. We know what God's told us to do, and we're going to follow the kings. We're going to do what we want. And he, at one point in his life, God tells him, you're not going to have a wife or children because you're not going to bring children into the family of Judah because they're terrible people. So you're not going to do that. So he's by himself. He's alone. And then people come and who he's been prophesying to, they chuck him in a well and they leave him there. And he manages to get out of the well. And then his family exiles him to Egypt. So his people take him and go, we're getting rid of you, Jeremiah. We don't like what you're saying. We don't like what you're doing. We're going to send you off to a different country. And so Jeremiah has this life that is very tricky. And he's going, all I know is, God, you've told me to do this. And I will do this. But I don't know why. And Jeremiah leads a life that is not pretty. Not pretty. I mean, if you can imagine traveling around and talking to people who don't want to hear what you got to say. They don't want to listen to you. They throw you in a well. They beat you. They batter you. They just completely ignore you. They ship you off to a different country. They don't care. And he still has this hope and faith that God has designated him for a purpose. And God gives him the words to say. So he doesn't have to put himself in there. He just has to say what God tells him to say. And there's this commentator who writes on Jeremiah, and he says, Jeremiah is one of the bravest, tenderest, and most pathetic figures in history. Because I know of no man who reveals a truer heart likeness to Jesus himself than does Jeremiah. In his yearning concern for his fellow man, his humility, willingness for self-sacrifice, and utter faithfulness. And that really hit me. I know no man who reveals a truer heart likeness to Jesus. There were a lot of people who didn't want to hear what Jesus had to say either. And ultimately, we know the path that Jesus was led on and how that path ended. And we also see the redeeming purposes of Christ afterwards. And at this point, Jesus hasn't come. Jesus hasn't come. And so he's just having faith that God is going to save him. And that God is going to redeem all this hardship that he's gone through. All of it. He's going to redeem it all. And Galatians, I think it's just a beautiful service to this, and it's a verse I think we've all heard many, many times. But it says, "Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." So, Jeremiah's redemption is a little different than everybody else's. Because it's not some public redemption. Some king didn't come out and go, "Oh, Jeremiah, well done, well done." The next place we see Jeremiah is in the next book, which is the book of Lamentations. And Lamentations is known as the book of sorrow. It's the book of sadness. It's the hymn of heartbreak. And it's a poem that Jeremiah wrote looking over the destroyed kingdom of Jerusalem that he tried so hard to save. And he's sitting in a cave on Golgotha, which is the mountain above Jerusalem. And he's looking out over Jerusalem. And he's like, "I've worked for like 40 years trying to save this city. And this city has been absolutely destroyed. The temple has been burned. The walls have been torn down. There are dead bodies. People have died for this. And it could have changed had you just listened to me." So Jeremiah writes this book of Lamentations, and I'm going to read this, and I know it's a little long, and I promise I won't keep you. But he reads the story in Lamentations, and I think it's really important to read. But he wrote this poem, and I want you to keep this in mind as well, that the word Lamentations in Greek means a song of expressing grief, loud weeping, hot burning, choked with sobs, an elegy or a dirge. So Jeremiah is writing this poem, and I can just imagine him sitting here in this cave looking over a city that he worked so hard for, and sobbing and crying and reading out. And this is what he says. And like I said, I'm going to read this. It's a little long, but it's Lamentations 3. And I want you to hear the story of Jeremiah's life in these words. It says, "I am a man who has seen affliction by the rod of the Lord's wrath. He has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. Indeed, he has turned his hand against me again and again all day long. He has made my skin and flesh to grow old. He has broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and hardship. He has made me dwell in darkness like those long dead. He has walled me in so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. Even when I cried out for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has barred my way with blocks of stone and has made my paths crooked. Like a bear lying in wait, like a lion in hiding, he dragged me from the path and mangled me, and he left me without help. He drew his bow, and he made me the target for his arrows. He pierced my heart with the arrows of his quiver, and I became the laughingstock of all my people. They mocked me in song all day long. He has filled me with bitter herbs and given me gall to drink. He has broken my teeth with gravel. He has trampled me in the dust. I have been deprived of peace. I have forgotten what prosperity is. So I say my splendor is gone and all that I hoped for from the Lord. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness, the gall. I will remember then, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet I call this to mind, and I have hope. Now, reading through that in life, I see my life in it as well. And I think we all see a little flash of that, the things that we go through in life, and the utter sorrow and sadness that we've experienced, and those battles that we fight on a daily basis, and those times that we feel completely let down by God. Like we're unheard, he's punishing me, he's torturing me, and we sit there and go, where's our redemption? Where's my redemption? And the beautiful thing is this is not where Jeremiah leaves this. Because he continues on with this little thread of hope. And he goes, therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those who help in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. For no one is cast off by the Lord forever. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion, and so great is his unfailing love. Now, those two pieces are in succession. So he sits there and he goes, God, you've cast me aside. You've stepped on me. You've thrown me in the dirt. You've sent my family to hate me. All I've done is served you. And you gave me this. Yet I still have hope that great is your faithfulness. That my story will have redemption. It will be redeemed. And the thing is, I don't think Jeremiah ever saw his story be redeemed. I don't think he ever lived to see his grief redeemed. Until the day that he died and he went to heaven and God went, well done, good and faithful servant. And I think that is so many times in our life, we want to see ourselves redeemed. We want to see ourselves taken out of these ugly spots. We want to see the good that comes after it. And I think that sometimes God, for whatever his reasoning is, doesn't allow those things. He doesn't allow that. He doesn't allow us to see that redemption. And I think we like to see the word hope as the world sees it as wishful thinking. That if I have hope, this might happen. If I have hope in God, maybe he'll pull me out of this. If I have hope in God, maybe he'll give me something else. But I think we need to look at it in a biblical perspective, which is confident expectation. God, I'm expecting you to do good things with me. I may not see it, but I'm expecting you to do it. I'm not hoping, I'm not wishing, I'm having hope in God. And at times that we sit there in our homes and by ourselves and we're struggling with that burning sorrow, that you also have hope that God is going to redeem that in you. And just as we look at these stories, just as much as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got their redemption, Daniel got his redemption in front of the nations. I see generations and nations after them that are seeing that redemption. I don't think any of them thought they were going to be written down in a book that's the world's number one bestseller in the world. Millions of copies are sold every day. I don't think any of them knew that they were going to be a part in the story of the God of the world. They saw today as today, and this is what I'm going to be, and this is the struggle I have living in today. But they weren't able to see what's coming in the future. And I just encourage us as we all walk through our struggles and our grief and our lament, to remember that God is faithful. God is faithful. And even if we don't see that redemption in ourselves every day, even if we don't see the fruits of our labor, that doesn't mean that the generations to come won't see it. Our children see it. Our kids and our family will sit there and go, my parents struggled greatly, yet they still had hope in God. And they passed it on. And we were raised this way. And so I know when things come up, it's not fun and it's not good. But if I have hope, my story will be redeemed. So I just want to say, as we go forward from this week, we may not be healed from illnesses. We may not be released from our grief. We still suffer from anxiety and that fire burning grief that comes within us. And any fire that we approach may still burn us, and those lions may bite us. But God will be faithful through all of it. Through all of it. So we end with the words that the weeping prophet. May we weep through our grief. May we go through life with those struggles. But may we also do what God has commanded us to do. And do that. So we're going to close with the song, Great is Thy Faithfulness. But before I do that, I just want to kind of close this out with prayer. This is a prayer that God gave me last night, and I really just feel like I need to pray it. So just bow your heads with me. Lord, we come before you today, and I call on your name. Lord, we're all suffering in our own kinds of lament from our depression, our anxiety, our grief, our pain, from the middle of our fight. We are in the midst of our fight. But great is your faithfulness to me. I call on your name, Lord, from the depths of my pit, and you hear my plea. You hear my cries for relief, and you come to me when I call you, and you tell me, do not fear. You take up my burden, and you redeem my life. And Lord, even when I don't see it, I will trust you, and I expect redemption that glorifies your name. And God, you are faithful. Amen.